Hello, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm your host for this segment, Anthony Smith, lead economist here at FreightWaves, and I'm joined by Trip House, Director of Business Development and Commercial Products for World Courier and Amerisource Bergen Company. Trip, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Trip, just jumping into it, after a year of living with the COVID-19 pandemic, what has been the lesson that the industry has learned?
Well, Anthony, I think we learned that the network is actually pretty robust. The flow of goods for the life science industry, they kept moving, under some great strains. And those current conditions have meant that the manufacturers and those logistic partners, they've needed to pivot at that moment's notice. Unfortunately, us in the industry that have that carrier agnostic approach, we provided that flexibility to adjust those processes as needed. We went from having mostly commercial airlines and booking space on those to booking freight capacity on cargo carriers. So we were able to keep the shipments moving, and World Courier's always had that approach. We can shift from a flight to a carrier to any mode of transport pretty quickly. And it's an ever-changing circumstance, and it's those with that flexibility that are really driving the market now. And that's always been World Courier's background. We experienced the volcano back in Iceland back in 2010. We learned a lot from that. We had an immediate impact on all the flights across Europe, and we were able to learn from those disruptions and able to use our the backlog of all that freight and use our ground network back then, just like we did today. And we also learned from our experiences in the Ebola outbreak. We were a key player in the clinical trial and the vaccine distribution. So we learned a lot from both of those experiences. And, a big thing in the industry that a lesson learned is that you have to be able to maintain temperature at your local facility. And fortunately, World Courier has 140 plus offices worldwide, and we have that breadth and scope to meet those needs for the industry.
Definitely. And Trip, you mentioned flexibility and adjustments. What has the pharma industry or pharma manufacturers learned about their supply chains?
Well, I think the biggest learning lesson is, have a backup plan. They have to have a backup supplier when outsourcing transport of their API or their drug product or their clinical supplies. And, you don't want to be rolling out a new supplier because that doesn't happen quickly. And backup suppliers need to be fully operational at any time. The key to being agile and to be better position the product, you have to be closer to your patient. That possesses less risk, right? So you got to get away from that just-in-time model that we had all got so accustomed to, and have stocked approach in country, get closer to the patient. And like I said, we have those 140 plus offices in 50 countries. So we can position ourselves in the supply chain, whether it be our strategically placed depots or our 3PL services, to help in that market. And I think another learning lesson for the manufacturers is, can you provide the packaging solutions? And, World Courier for 4 decades has been providing that service, whether it's a small box or all the way up to a palletized freight. We've been able to provide that on-demand package solution, backed up from our data with our core labs. So it's that end-to-end chain of custody with those customer-specific procedures that has helped World Courier shift with those manufacturer needs.
Definitely. There's definitely been a lot of shifts. But Trip, final question, definitely curious, what's next and where do we go from here as an industry?
That's the million-dollar question, right? I mean, we're a year on from the start of the pandemic, and, we're still seeing spikes in cases worldwide. With new cases come new barriers. And, you have regulations across countries that may not be aligned. And some countries are applying local lockdowns, and they even have different regulations for different cities. So, evidently, this is ongoing. We're not near the end. It's a global crisis with specific local implications, right? So it means we need to be prepared for the continuing change in the supply chain and retain the increased awareness that we've developed for that medium to long term. We should have plans, but we should be prepared to change. Now, the air industry right now is not forecasting a return to pre-COVID levels till probably 2024, 2025. So we got a ways to go. And cargo-only flights are important to enable that international trade. And thankfully, commercial flight options are starting to improve. But you know, vaccines are just beginning to be distributed, and there's still 63 trials yet to be approved. So the movement will increase and it'll level out later into the year. But that being said, those volumes are small compared to the pre-COVID 2019 total air cargo trade. The congestion is still a current challenge, and right now you're also seeing congestion in the sea industry. So that sea freight is now moving to air and raising prices even further. So you take that with narrowed flight corridors and multiple variant constraints now with the virus happening, we've got a long way to go in this fight.
A long way to go indeed, and lots of shifts and adjustments being made. Trip, thank you so much for your time here, and we're excited to see what's next for you and World Courier in the coming months and years.
Thanks again.